Hi, it's Danielle from the blog wormwithtime.com, where I help you design a home full of vintage charm. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing how to mix milk paint. So if you're new here to my channel, I love using milk paint for all of my vintage furniture makeovers. The reason why I love using milk paint over other paints, you can find here in this video. But in today's video, I want to share exactly how to mix milk paint, because if you're a beginner and never used milk paint before, you might be pretty intimidated with it because milk paint comes in a powder form and must be mixed right before you go to use it. So I'm going to be demonstrating exactly how to mix milk paint today and painting this vintage stool that I had laying around I got from the thrift store, as well as answering some of the most common milk paint mixing questions. Okay, so to mix milk paint, you just use a 1-to-1 ratio of milk paint powder to water. I'm going to take a 1/4 cup of my milk paint powder, and I'm going to mix it with 1/4 cup of warm water. It's really important to understand that the 1-to-1 ratio of milk paint is just a rule of thumb. It's not a complete science. So sometimes, depending on the color that you're mixing or the environment that you live in, you may find that even after you've mixed it with a 1-to-1 ratio, you might need to add a little bit more powder or a little bit more water. And when you're mixing, you can use a multitude of different devices to actually mix the paint and the water together. Personally, I just like to use a little fork. This is a fork that I designated for milk paint, so it's got lots of colors and variations here on it. But you could also choose to use something called an immersion blender, especially if you need to mix up a lot of paint. I find this is very handy to have. So then after you've added your powder to the water, then you just spend a couple minutes mixing it all up. So what you're looking for with your consistency is you want your milk paint to be like a melted milkshake consistency. You don't want your milk paint to be so thin that it's running as you paint, but you also don't want it to be so thick that it drags as you paint your piece. So after you've mixed your milk paint, the next step is to go ahead and wait 10 to 15 minutes before you actually paint your paint. This step is something you don't want to skip. It's very important because what is happening is you're going to let all of the milk paint powder pigments fully dissolve in that water. And during that 10 to 15 minutes, I like to go ahead and prep my piece, maybe remove hardware or sand down my piece of furniture if I need to do that. And then before you know it, you're ready to go ahead and get started with painting. So now that my milk paint has sat for about 10 to 15 minutes after I mixed it, I'm ready to go ahead and get started with painting. So today, while I'm painting this vintage stool, I thought I would answer some of the most common mixing milk paint questions. So this stool I just got from the thrift store. It's pretty cute little vintage stool, and the color is okay, but I think the green will look really pretty and pop a little bit more in my house. So question number 1 about mixing milk paint is, how long does the milk paint powder last? So milk paint powder will last in the powder form, how it originally comes, will last forever. So you can get multiple bags of milk paint and not worry about them going bad as long as you're keeping them in a dry area. However, once the milk paint has actually been mixed up, like I have today, this paint will only last a couple of days. You can extend how long your milk paint lasts by putting it in the fridge, but in general, I like to only mix up enough milk paint to get an entire coat on my piece. And how much milk paint you need to mix up at a time is going to vary. I usually try to err on the side of I need to mix more milk paint than mix too much milk paint and then it goes bad. But in general, you can use about 1/4 cup to paint like small items like this stool or a small chair or an end table. But if you're painting a large piece of furniture like a large dresser or a buffet, you would probably need about 1/2 cup to 3/4 cup of milk paint to paint that. Another common question about mixing milk paint is, what point in the process of mixing do you actually add the bonding agent? So if you're really confused about what a bonding agent is, watch this video here on a beginner's guide to milk paint. But what part of the process you add the bond, it really doesn't matter. You can add the bond just after you start mixing that powder and water, or you could add the bond after you've let the paint sit for about that 10 to 15 minutes. Either one will work. I've really never noticed a difference when I add the bond. Okay, another question you might be wondering about mixing milk paint is, can you mix colors? So yes, you can mix colors. In fact, some of my most favorite colors are different combinations of milk paint powder. So I just mix up the powder before I add the water. I usually just do a 50-50 mix of two colors just to keep it easier for me to remember. But I just do that right before I add the water to the milk paint. Alright, well that's how to mix milk paint. I really hope that you enjoyed watching this video. Let me know in the comments, what are your other milk paint questions? I would love to answer those for you. And be sure to check out my milk paint tips and tricks playlist if you haven't already. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye bye.